Here we go. What you've all been waiting for. Well, Peter, you look like you've had a couple of drinks there, as usual.
You are being slaughtered and you don't realize it.
There could be a dollar crisis.
They're debasing the currency by 15% a year.
I mean, it is inevitable that it's going to happen.
But does that just mean that we're crazy and that it's going to be fine?
I'm not saying everybody is wrong. I'm saying that people that believe in Bitcoin.
Now look at Peter's face, by the way, very, very, very closely. I mean, honestly, I think Peter is intoxicated.
Are wrong.
You're missing the point.
Well, why the hell would anybody buy these? These are obviously going to go to zero.
I'm not concerned about the cliff of death.
How do we make sense of these numbers? Or is...
I mean, dude, wow. Interesting.
Is this a guaranteed slaughter and we just don't know when? The tension.
Guaranteed slaughter. You hear that? There's a guaranteed slaughter out there. We just don't know when. Think about that. By saying that, that makes you a con artist. You're trying to instill fear and panic and keep people in this whole, they need your help. You're a life coach, right? Impact Theory University can help them because there's going to be a collapse. We just don't know when, right? Wow. You're a fraud, dude. You're a fraud. Just stop it. Stop swindling people. Stop destroying lives.
Between the way the two of you think has been really instrumental in helping me and I think countless others build a worldview that will help them navigate different moments in the economy well.
Oh, really? Please tell us how. Both these guys are broken clock extremist charlatans who have no fucking idea what's going on, who have terrible track records. Write that down. Write that down. Now, I have documented Peter Schiff's track record. Nobody's got this fucking guy's number better than me. Okay? I've got hundreds of entries on Peter Schiff, probably over 100 videos alone on this guy's track record, his methods, everything. This RuPaul guy doesn't do any research, so there's no real track record. And, he's got his Peter doesn't do any research either, but he spews out all his bullshit, and you can look at his fund performance. This Raoul Pal guy, he's got a lot of bullshit predictions with gold and cryptocurrencies. I don't follow that garbage, but I know for a fact he has been consistently wrong on just about everything that's come out of his mouth. And anybody out there who's compiled a track record, I don't want to waste the time on the guy because the guy's he's a complete fraudster, liar, and scumbag, a filthy, disgusting loser. At least I think Peter believes, doesn't make it better, doesn't mean that he's, but he believes his bullshit. Raoul Paul, I don't think he believes his bullshit. I think he's just trying to swindle people completely.
I think right now we're going through a period of just massive transition. And so I come to the debate between...
Massive transition, right? Well, that's kind of an open-ended statement, right? You could be saying that. You could say last year, year before, the year before, right? You could say that any year.
Crypto, not crypto, with that in mind. So to oversimplify your guys' stances, I see Raoul, I see you as pro-crypto. Peter, I see you as anti-crypto. I know those are really gross simplifications. So I'd love to start with, Raoul, if you could walk us through your position, how you see crypto, why you think it's valuable, and then Peter will come to you for your take.
Okay, so I think we will both agree.
Now, before we begin with this guy, disgusting scam artist, this guy, he's connected he's a part of the tribe, by the way, just like Peter is, just like Tom is. And being part of the tribe, you get promoted in the media, okay, regardless of anything else. Because there's this tribalism is very discriminatory. What they're doing is illegal. They're discriminating against everybody else. I'm not going to get into that. If you talk about it, you're the evil guy, right? It's like blame the victim, right? Blame the victim. But this guy came out and several years ago was claiming he predicted the financial crisis. Now, he didn't come out and say it so much, I think, but he got the media to write it in the headlines. He did not predict the financial crisis. Let me go ahead and show you. Actually, I'm gonna pull up. I probably have some here. Some of these images. So here's one image here. I had to make it larger to remove the writing that I put in because I don't want this to be censored. But this guy claimed that he was a hedge fund, ran a hedge fund and predicted the financial. He was in the sales crew. And of course, you notice the Market Watch is a big scam, by the way. And if you're not a certain ethnicity, you're not going to work as a writer for Market Watch, by the way. If you don't believe me, take an inventory. And of course, the people that they write about, that they promote, it's the same ethnicity. You can't talk about it, though. But you'll notice back in 2016, you'll notice that, what was he doing? Raoul Pal was promoting gold. He was pumping gold, you see? The cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, hadn't taken off yet. Raoul Pal, what's my point? My point is that guys like this, he's a predator, an opportunistic predator parasite who's going to pump the thing that's going to be the hot thing of the moment. Gold was hot back then, not so much, but certainly the cryptocurrencies weren't. And then the cryptocurrencies got on fire and he started to promote them. You see? Why? Folks, the con artists always want to be involved with the biggest audience. You understand? They want the hottest topic because they want the largest audience for which they can fleece. You see? And it's perfect because gold, you got a lot of suckers. You got a lot of morons that believe a lot of nonsense. Cryptocurrency is even worse. You see? So it's great for con artists because you don't have to be sophisticated. You don't have to have a clue what's going on. All you got to do is bullshit. And here you can see in this Barron's 2019 trader who nailed 2008 crisis says the next 3 months mark the edge of the cliff. Trader who nailed the 2008 crisis. How do you nail it? Show me the proof. I wrote 2 books that nailed it in detail before it happened and recommended to short the stocks and predicted the bottom of the market 2.5 years before it happened. The exact bottom. That's fact. Okay, those 2 chapters are posted on archive.org. How did this guy nail it? No. Barron's, you're a fraud publication. Barron's banned me, by the way. Robin Blumenthal, piece of garbage, racist, anti-white propagandist who only wants to interview people if they're pro-Israel, by the way. That's right. That's how the media works, folks. I lived it firsthand. This guy was not a co-fund manager. He was in sales. He was in sales. It's a complete lie. Another image here that I had to kind of censor here. So you can see 2019, he's talking about basically another kind of 2008 financial crisis coming very soon. U.S. dollar is going to collapse. Okay. Market's going to collapse everything. Okay. So I've got a lot more on him, but I'm not going to show any more because it's too hard to censor the images. So let's go ahead and listen to what this con man has to say. Bullshit artist.
Agree that things are pretty screwed up. We'll all agree. Right?
How are things pretty screwed up? I think things are doing pretty well, all things considered. Now, March of 2020, things were pretty screwed up. April, yeah. Even May, right? Many would say June, July, August. Many would say the full 2020. Right? This is the end of March 2024. Been no recession, strong GDP numbers, strong earnings, markets blasting through new highs, rates are high, going to be coming down. The market is doing spectacular, a little bit heated up, of course. The economy is doing really good considering rates are so high, right? So I don't know what you're talking about. You're fear mongering like you've been doing all these years. You're a broken clock scam artist. That's what you are, Raoul Pal.
What is really screwed up is the world is massively in debt.
Okay? You know, these people that have been talking about debt for years and years and years, the only countries that got to worry about massive debt are, well, mainly the developing countries, middle income countries. One thing's for sure, the U.S. doesn't have to worry about it. If the U.S. has to worry about their debt, then you could pretty much kiss the rest of the world goodbye. Okay, you're going to have a lot of other countries are going to be in deep trouble before the U.S. And finally, of course, if you print your own currency and you're a major economy, you're not going to have to worry about debt. That places the whole EU in peril, by the way. And that's why Japan, by the way, hasn't had a sovereign debt crisis, despite the predictions of the experts like Kyle Bass, who lost his ass betting against Japan. Right? So, shut your mouth. You don't know what you're talking about. Just shut it. Stop instilling fear in people. You're a con man. Get an honest job. Stop being a parasite.
The workforce is shrinking. Population growth is slowing down. It's slowing down GDP growth. So there's not enough GDP growth to pay.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? GDP just came in today. Q4 2023, 3.4%. What are you talking about? I mean, this guy is full of shit. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And, you know, GDP, I would say, is going to weaken from 2023. But Jesus Christ, you're talking about highest rates we've had in 2 decades, right? Fed's not going to move probably before June, and they're going to go slow as hell. So, of course, you would expect GDP to get weaker than 2023. But 2023 was a breakout year relative to the expectations. Why don't you talk about that? Because you're a con man. Your whole purpose is to instill fear and panic, right? So people will rush into your bullshit. You can sell them your cryptocurrency research, which there's no such thing as that, by the way. There's no legitimate cryptocurrency research. Doesn't exist, okay? If you don't understand why, you got a lot to learn. Has the same thing to do with the reason why it's impossible to legitimately predict a price target for any cryptocurrency and even gold and silver. It's impossible. If you don't understand that, you've got a lot to learn. Contact us. Okay, if you don't understand, contact us. And I will point you to a video that I made that discusses why.
Or service the amount of debts out there. And what we found since 2008, that the answer to this debt issue has been printing of more money, debasement of currency. People think of it in terms of...
I mean, honestly, this guy has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. And once again, let me remind you who you're listening to in terms of myself, moi. I'm the guy that predicted the financial crisis. If you don't know that, I suggest the first thing you get your ass doing is read my books and figure that out for yourself, who the leading expert is out there. Okay. He's saying that the financial crisis basically was due to debt, and we've been printing more money as a solution to that. That's not true at all. The reason why there was more money printing was to increase output, to increase the demand, to reduce the deflationary forces out there. That was why, you're talking about quantitative easing. That's why, okay? Anyway, this guy is a fucking chump.
At first they think it's going to be inflation, as in the price of CPI goes up, but it's
easy to say when, we've got already high inflation.
Actually not. It's actually something much worse, is wages don't rise, but assets go up, because optically you're debasing the currency. Your future self is getting poorer because assets are all about storing wealth for future deferred consumption.
Anyway, I'm not going to listen to this. This guy's obviously just chicanery bullshit. Doesn't know what he's talking about. Just word salad games. I want to listen to Schiff's bullshit because it's pretty funny. You know what he's going to say. The same bullshit. I want to listen to Schiff. Well, here we go. Okay.
Are you wondering how much it will cost?
Jesus. I will not
You are being
endure ads. These ads.
Put a big, money on it, and it value a superior potential to use. But this is just option. Big gold stock all provide artificially. There's not a lot of people there. Unfortunately, it's
Again, I'm actually not an anti-gold person whatsoever. I just
You're a
think
gold pumper. What are you talking? I just showed you guys. Folks, you got to know the history of these people. This guy was a huge gold pumper because that was the fringe thing back then. Now the fringe thing is cryptocurrency. He's all over it because there's a huge audience of people, a huge market of people he can fleece. I mean,
when you've got technology plus gold, call it that as a narrative, you're always going to do better.
cryptocurrency is not gold. As much as gold is bullshit for an investment, gold is a lot better than cryptocurrency. Gold is actually something real, okay?
And in our job to help people navigate this journey, if you're 65 years old, gold does a great job for you.
Oh, really? You think? How about if you're 65 years old and you bought gold in 2010 and 2011? Well, guess what? It took you more than 10 years to break even. If you're 65, I don't think that's going to work. So gold is actually one of the worst things you can own, you can buy when you're approaching retirement or in retirement, because it can face many years of a downturn. Do I need to pull up a chart? Do I need to pull up the chart and show you guys what happened to gold in 1980? It collapsed from the record high back then of 800 and something down to $200 next couple of years. Gold traded between roughly $200 to $300 through the 80s, through the 90s. Okay? For 20 years, gold was around, let's give it an average of $250, $300 from a high of 800. Okay, so this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's a fucking clown, clueless. And by the way, he's never served as a financial advisor. Not that it's rocket science, but folks, do you all know what older people are advised to invest in? I know you all know this. And when you get the answer, you're going to realize that you're more knowledgeable than this fast-talking charlatan, Raoul Powell. Think about it. I'll give you a hint. As you increase in age, gradually, your asset allocation goes more from stocks to bonds. Why? Because bonds provide income, they're lower risk, right? And they're generally lower in volatility. So it's not gold. Gold does not belong in the portfolio of someone 65. You're fucking clueless. Sit down and shut up. Raoul Paul.
If you're 35-year-old, you ain't going to get anywhere. You have to gain wealth, not just protect wealth, because you don't have it when you're young. And that's the difference here. This is the core difference to...
Yeah, 35, gain wealth. How about the stock market? Right? The stock market. You notice neither of them are going to say the stock market, folks. So let's compare 35 to 65. That's 30 years in the stock market. How much do you think the stock market's appreciated? Let's go ahead and take a look here. Because some of you are just damn lazy and some of you are just damn stupid. Go ahead and take a look. Okay. Fix this chart here. Let's call it what, 1990? Is that right? To the math? Okay, let's see here. Well, I can't really fit it all on the screen. Let's go. No, that's not going to work. Well, it doesn't fit, as you can see, so you get a rough idea, though. We have to start at 2000. Right, so I don't know, let's try here. Here we go. Okay, so there you have it, folks. This is so he's talking about a 35-year-old. The gold is not going to do well for a 35-year-old, and they can't build wealth. It's good for 65. That's what Raoul Paul says. But where's stocks in that conversation? Stocks is what you want. You can buy the index. If you bought the index 35 years ago, you could have bought it for $400. It's $5,200 now. This is buy and hold. It's not even reinvesting dividends. Reinvesting dividends is going to be a lot higher. Okay? A lot higher. So think about that one. Okay? Just wanted to show you guys.
Right. What is really screwed up is the world is massively in debt. The workforce is shrinking. Population growth is slowing down. It's slowing down GDP growth. So there's not enough GDP growth to...
Wait a second here. Get back to Schiff. I don't know how we got... Okay, here we
To
go.
me, is there's a suitability factor for different types of people. And
Wow. Are you kidding me? This bozo actually has the gall to talk about suitability, and he's promoting cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies are a scam. All of them. Write that down. Go to your favorite cryptocurrency expert in the world. Guaranteed they won't debate me on a neutral platform on crypto. When they find out who I am. You see, because they won't go up against someone who's really credible and who won't pull the punches. I have no agenda. You see, if it's Peter Schiff debating someone on crypto, first of all, Peter's got this bullshit argument, his gold bullshit. So that's not even credible. Second of all, even if he had something credible, he's going to pull all his punches. Why? Because he just wants to be there to promote himself. I don't give a shit how I come across. I don't care if I come across as a rude guy. I don't care. I'm for the truth. And I'm pissed off that people are being defrauded and lied to by all these scam artists out there who are trying to exploit people for their own personal gain. You see? Guaranteed. Contact your favorite crypto expert. Guaranteed. Nobody. I'm not talking about some fucking chump. Okay, I'm talking the leading guys out there. Guaranteed they won't. Neutral platform. Guaranteed. In fact, I'm willing to make a bet. I'd be willing to pay. It would be I would have to select out of 5 or 10 of them. I would pay someone if they could organize it. Because I'd blow the lid off the industry for the public. I don't have any exposure, see? They wouldn't do it because they don't want the public to have to be able to hear what I have to say. Because they're lying to people. They're hiding the truth from people. So this guy, RuPaul, wants to tell you about suitability. Wow. I mean, this is pretty shocking and scary. And in fact, maybe somebody should contact the SEC when you've got a guy that's talking about suitability, and he's basically saying that cryptocurrencies are suitable as an investment. Cryptocurrencies are a scam. Write that down. Cryptocurrencies are a huge conduit for illicit transactions, for terrorist activities, funding of terrorist activities, funding human sex trafficking, funding body part smuggling, funding drug trade, funneling money laundering. Most of the cryptocurrency money out there is illegal. That's a fact. The cryptocurrency exchanges are scamming people. They're making up trades. They're making up volumes. They're lying. This has been going on and on and on. Is it going on as much as before? No. It's gradually tapering down because of the regulatory arm that's moving in. But irrespective of that, cryptocurrencies remain as a scam. And they also, by the way, I forgot to mention, they're fueling ransomware. Think about that. Anybody who's promoting cryptocurrencies is promoting a criminal industry. They're scammers. It's fact.
You're trying to solve different problems.
Very well laid out. Peter, what's your position? How do you come to your worldview?
Well, I agree with Raul that inflation is a problem. Unfortunately, it's the path of least resistance for politicians to go down. It's the way they finance their spending. It's the way they buy their own reelection. It's the way they avoid having to be honest with the electorate and tell them the truth.
Peter, here's where Peter's doing his little political dance. You know, I guess he thinks he's going to run for senator again, another failed attempt. I mean, dude, give us your fear-mongering broken clock stuff. Come on, Peter.
You know, for most practical purposes, are actually better than Bitcoin. They're cheaper to use. They're faster to use, to the extent that you want to use Bitcoin, which nobody does because it's not a very good cryptocurrency. I mean, it's certainly not a store of value, but it's not a good medium of exchange or unit of account. I mean, there are plenty of other cryptos that actually fit that bill better, to the extent that somebody wanted to use them for that purpose, but they don't. I mean, everybody uses a crypto to gamble. I mean, that's the main use case. And in fact, that's what's happening now with these ETFs. The ETFs have simply provided yet another way to gamble on Bitcoin. And it's like ironic. Now you have all these people buying Bitcoin through a third-party custodian who's charging a fee. I mean, you're getting everybody back into the very financial system that they were supposed to be leaving.
It's funny Peter mentions that because I'm the first person to talk about that many years ago, that Bitcoin has lost its relevance. The original purpose was for a peer-to-peer exchange, right? Low-cost transactions, peer-to-peer exchange. When it's peer-to-peer, it's decentralized, okay? When you go to an exchange, it's not decentralized anymore. How come no one's telling you that? It's centralized. It's centralized to some fucking scam artist that you don't know, located in the Cayman fucking Islands or some other place like the Bahamas, like Sam Bankman-Fried. You're trusting this guy. It's centralized to him and his fucking pockets. Okay? Write this down. Cryptocurrency is a completely different ball game if it's not peer-to-peer. The exchanges changed everything, and I already wrote about this. I've done videos about it before. Wall Street controls the cryptocurrency industry. Wall Street created all these exchanges and funded these exchanges. Okay, they control everything. And they did it because it's easy pickings, easy money. And this is why cryptocurrencies, as I said many years ago, weren't going away. They were just going to be regulated. They weren't going to go away because it's too much easy money for the Wall Street guys, the venture capital guys. Okay? But it will be regulated. I knew that. And it is gambling. It's pretty obvious what's going on. It's gambling. But, you know, the people making the money, it's funny, Peter talks about the exchanges. the fees being charged. The exchanges are the only guys making the consistent money. You want to make money in cryptos, invest in, well, I shouldn't say invest in an exchange because I wouldn't, I don't mean through the stock market. Maybe invest, well, I'm not going to even say that because there's a lot of scams out there. If you want to make money in cryptocurrencies, start a fucking exchange. Okay? You're going to make money on each side of the trade. Shouldn't even be traded anyway. It's complete gambling bullshit. Just like the precious metals market. Why do you think Peter Schiff is a precious metals dealer? He makes money either way. Buying, selling. Okay, that's how you make the money in precious metals. You're a dealer. I've been saying that for years. You want to make the money in cryptos? Open an exchange. Okay? That's what you do. When you got an industry like that, where the money's being made, most of the money's being made through the transactions, you got a scam industry. All right? That's what you got. That's the precious metals industry. That's cryptocurrency industry. And both of those industries, by the way, are known for rampant money laundering.
And I keep hearing these people on television say, well, it's so hard to buy Bitcoin. It's so difficult. And this makes it easy. Now everybody can buy it. I thought everybody could buy it before. The beauty of Bitcoin was supposed to be it was so simple and easy. You didn't need a third party. You didn't need a custodian. You didn't need storage charges. I mean, so it's all they're doing is now trying to convince Wall Street to buy this asset, which has no fundamental value, has no income, has, no earnings, no nothing. But
wait a second, Peter, are you talking about gold? Peter is so foolish. He doesn't even realize that also applies to gold. Has no earnings, has no income, right? It has a use, but Bitcoin has a use. Bitcoin has a use if you want to launder money, right? If you want to hide money from illegal transactions, gold has that use as well. But both of those, I'm not going to call them assets. Both of those things, gold, cryptocurrencies, they're not productive assets, or they're not productive at all. They don't do anything. They don't generate an income. They don't generate any rents. Of course, you have the cryptocurrencies out there that I don't know if there's any that are still doing it, but the staking programs that were generating the rents, of course, that was a Ponzi scheme. I knew that from the beginning. It's pretty obvious. So it's funny. Schiff doesn't even realize that he's making the same arguments that apply to gold against cryptocurrencies.
As long as we keep buying it and nobody sells it, well, the price will keep going up, and we can all operate under the delusion that we're getting rich as long as nobody tries to get out.
It's funny. Same thing about gold. All the gold pumpers were trying to do the same thing, and they're still trying to do the same thing about gold. That's why they released all this delusional mythology and all the lies, which I've debunked many years ago, all the myths about gold. They wanted people to believe this stuff. They still do. So, don't sell your gold, hold your gold, hold your gold. You see, they want to keep the gold prices. So he's saying the same thing about cryptocurrency. It's funny, he won't reveal the same thing about gold because, they're both trying to peddle their nonsense.
And everybody keeps pretending that they've got all this money because on paper, they've got something. But, it's going to be very different when people try to get out. And I think it's going to be very noticeable with these Bitcoin ETFs, because I think a lot of the money that's going into the ETFs is trading money. I think a lot of it came out of gold stocks. I mean, if you look at what's happened in the last week or two, gold stocks have been clobbered. Even though the price of gold is unchanged to slightly higher, you've seen 10, 20% drops in big gold stocks. I think
these guys are both clowns, a waste of time. It's propaganda, nonsense, disinformation, folks. Do the opposite of what these guys say, okay? And worst case scenario, in terms of you don't know what's going on, buy the S&P index, automatically reinvest the dividends, and don't ever pay attention to the financial media ever, okay? Don't ever do it. Move on with your life. Stay away from all this shit. I'm telling you right now. Because there's nothing out there but a whole world of scammers. And hopefully I have shown you today giving you a glimpse of that. I've been covering this topic now for the better part of 20 years. And I think the first article I actually wrote covering this broadly speaking, this topic was on Donald Trump, cheeseball marketing. I think it was in 2008. I knew he was a scam artist back then. And then I continued with Martin Weiss shortly thereafter. And that's when I understood the media. I was banned from Google AdSense because I exposed Martin Weiss. And of course, Martin Weiss was a big customer of Google. And fortunately, that happened because I never collected a penny of ad revenue. And I never have, and I never will. Because if you're selling ad-based content, you're a scammer. Your content is dog shit. And your content is basically dictated and bought off, whether you realize it or not.
There are two fundamental reforms that we need is to get adequate capital and two, to get far higher levels of enforcement of fraud statutes. Existing ones, I'm not even talking about new. Things were being done which were certainly illegal and clearly criminal in certain cases, which, I mean, fraud is a fact. Fraud creates very considerable instability in competitive markets. If you cannot trust your counterparties, it won't work. And indeed, we saw that it didn't.
So things went very well, and then the economy collapses. And so all of a sudden people are saying, well, it was Alan Greenspan's fault because he should have anticipated this. Did you think that was fair?
Nobody forecast the 2008 crisis. One of the things I put in the second book I wrote was how the IMF missed it, the Federal Reserve missed it. You go down a whole series of the major forecasting.
Well, everybody got it wrong, let's say.
You can't have a crisis of that nature that is not a surprise. Nobody forecast the 2008 crisis. One of the things I put in the second book I wrote was how the IMF missed it, the Federal Reserve missed it. You go down a whole series of the major forecasting.
Well, everybody got it wrong, let's say.
You can't have a crisis of that nature that is not a surprise. Nobody forecast the 2008 crisis. Nobody forecast the 2008 crisis. Nobody forecast the 2008 crisis. There are two fundamental reforms that we need is to get adequate capital and two, to get far higher levels of enforcement of fraud statutes. Existing ones, I'm not even talking about new. Things were being done which were certainly illegal and clearly criminal in certain cases, which, I mean, fraud is a fact. Fraud creates very considerable instability in competitive markets. If you cannot trust your counterparties, it won't work. and indeed we saw that it didn't. Certainly illegal and clearly criminal in certain cases, which, I mean, fraud is a fact. Fraud creates very considerable instability in competitive markets. If you cannot trust your counterparties, it won't work. And indeed we saw that it didn't. Certainly illegal and clearly criminal in certain cases, which, I mean, fraud is a fact. Fraud creates very considerable instability in competitive markets. If you cannot trust your counterparties, it won't work. And indeed we saw that it didn't. There are two fundamental reforms that we need is to get adequate capital, and two, to get far higher levels of enforcement of fraud statutes. Existing ones, I'm not even talking about new. Things were being done which were certainly illegal and clearly criminal in certain cases, which, I mean, fraud is a fact. Fraud creates very considerable instability in competitive markets. If you cannot trust your counterparties, it won't work. And indeed we saw that it didn't. Nobody forecast the 2008 crisis. Things were being done which were certainly illegal and clearly criminal in certain cases, which nobody forecast the 2008 crisis. 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 Nobody forecast the 2008 crisis.
terms of getting back as an investor, if it's coming down to here, almost irrespective of what's going on, I have to believe, if I have to make a call in advance, and of course I can change depending on what happens, but I have to believe this is where you want to start doing that 18, 17, around there. Their earnings report is a complete game changer, at least for quite a while. Bottom line, NVIDIA now is going to enter the realm of Tesla, Apple, and all these other big, I mean, listen, NVIDIA can come down to 150, come down to $100. If you don't think it's possible, then you don't understand how the market works. I mean, listen, NVIDIA can come down to 150, come down to $100. If you don't think it's possible, then you don't understand how the market works.